maybe even what advice would you give retail traders when they're starting, what they need to really concentrate on?
Yeah, that's there are a few simple, basic, I wouldn't say truths, but there are certain basic skills that you need to embrace. Some people have them, some people don't, but they're very easily learned. Is that first of all, you've got to be patient. I think the view from outside of the trading world is that traders are very short-term, very fast-paced. Completely wrong. Traders need to be patient. You've got to be patient to let your opportunities present themselves. And once they have presented themselves, you've got to be patient to let the timing to put the trades on. And then once you've taken risk, you've got to be patient to let the trades develop. Just because you've bought something or sold something doesn't mean it's immediately going to work. This is not a short-term way to make money. So you've got to be patient, and you've got to be humble, because at the Institute, as you know, we will give people a methodology how to generate ideas, try and get ahead of where the economies are going, and you've got to develop your own ideas. Don't rely on anybody else. Your ideas, your thought process, your methodology will educate you along the process, but everybody fine-tunes, and everybody's got a slight different bias of where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. But the most important thing is that you have to be able to generate your own ideas. Don't rely on anybody else. Don't listen to broker research. Your own ideas. Have your own methodology. And then, once you develop those ideas, you need to be patient to wait for the opportunities to present themselves.
Okay.
And you have to be patient because we're looking here for anywhere between a 1 to 6 month horizon. So we want to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the market. We don't want to be 3 or 4 steps ahead of the market. That is, as you referred to before, that's investing.
And actually, that is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given. You've probably been the number one guy that's taught me to be emotionless when it comes to P&L. Well, how do you control your emotions?
Emotional control is absolutely essential to being successful at trading. The most important thing about is, as you said, it's the detachment. A few things that I have learned about trading is that, first of all, don't try and never give yourself any financial targets. Don't try and achieve a certain amount of return. The returns, because then it will make you trade badly, because you're trying to force things that aren't there. So first of all, you've got to be realistic about the risk that you're taking, and you've got to be realistic about where your soft targets are, where you're looking to take some profits. So that's one thing that you've got to be, your trading is also a function of what's the opportunities which are available in the marketplace. To take the emotion out of it, is the most important part of trading is when you get stopped out. Before you put a trade on, you need to know what your stop loss is. And if your stop loss is triggered, you exit the position and get out. And this happens to every single trader. Every trader has traded and they've been successful will have been stopped out of positions. Stop losses and the discipline are absolutely key. And this is where the emotional detachment is absolutely key, because you need to have the emotional detachment from your P&L. Okay, you're realizing a loss, but you need to be able to switch that off and exit the position. A good example of that is when we were on the desk at Goldman. Okay. I think somewhere around about sort of 2000, 2001, right, just as the NASDAQ bubble started to burst. Okay. We had the peak. Subsequently, so it looked as though that we'd hit a peak a few months later, and obviously in a bear market, there's going to be some vicious squeezes along the way. Nothing ever goes up or down a straight line.
So that's a massive short on it.
So I remember one day we were very, very short in the back book. Yeah. Market was squeezing and really sort of gapping to the upside. We were getting taken short everything in the front book. And,
I remember this; it was painful.
Yeah, I think we were down a lot of money. I think at one stage we were short probably about $500 million.
Jesus, yes.
About $500 million, and we.
So I think it was $400 million. Yeah. At lunchtime.
Yeah, at lunchtime. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Lunch wasn't too good that day. And we thought, okay, what do we do? This is the emotional detachment. We could panic and cover the whole lot. We came in short. Our proprietary view was to be short, that the markets were going down, our stocks were going down. We were trading telecoms and technology. It's clearly higher beta in that environment. So market goes down 2%, some of these stocks are going anywhere between 5 and 10%, and vice versa. And the short squeeze that I was seeing, market was up 1-2%.
Vicious moves.
Our shorts are up anywhere between 2 and 5%. That's the nature of the beast. That's the volatility, which, like I said, is opportunity. But clearly, there's also P&L swings associated with that.
Yeah.
So we were short. We were bearish. Got taken short by a lot of guys buying stocks, either to short cover or to have a punt and sort of think that the market's turned and everything's going back to the highs. We didn't think so. However, lunchtime we had a conversation. We're very short.
I remember this conversation. It was actually a horrible conversation to have.
Well, we could have panicked. We could have covered the whole lot because we were losing money. That wasn't our view. We could have panicked and been a rabbit in the headlights, frozen, unable to do anything. Equally as bad, because we were there as market makers, we were there to provide liquidity to institutions, and that was our job.
Yeah.
We needed to be able to continue to trade. The only way we could do this, as you remember, is that we bought Euro stocks.
Yes.
And before we did it, we bought the Euro stocks because we needed to reduce the risk.
I literally remember having this conversation where we're sitting next to each other, and we literally looked at each other and said, "What the hell do we do here? We have to do something."
Yeah.
And we don't like what we're doing, but we have to do it. And that's about staying in motion, I guess, staying objective and staying in motion, doing something.
We had to be unemotional and detached from our P&L and our risk. Well, we just looked exclusively at risk. We were too short. We had to reduce that because we needed to stay in the game. We bought the Euro stocks, and we both knew this was going to be the high of the day. Subsequently, it turned out
and it literally was the high of the day. I think we printed the high of the day in Euro stocks.
Somebody has to.
Yeah.
However, when the market started to turn again in the afternoon, what we did do was we increased the positions and increased the shorts. That, I would say, is textbook of how to trade. We didn't increase the shorts on the way up. We waited until we reduced the risk to get it back in motion. Obviously, we sold the Euro stocks at a loss because our view was still to be short. But when we had got confirmation in our own minds that the trade was now going to work, then we increased it.
And at the end of the day, we actually came out of the day up.
I think we were up small.
That was insane.
But then over the next 2 days, we made a very big amount of money.
So in terms of objectivity, the risk in that scenario, it's almost like a textbook case study of emotional detachment, right?
Very much so.
Because the objectivity and the risk management practices that we were implementing right at those moments, it was actually all about doing the right thing at the right time. And that's actually a skill set that you can't learn unless you're in it and doing it for real with real money, right? I mean, and you've obviously mentored a lot of guys in the last year. Retail traders, when they start out, what do you find from your experience retail traders struggle with? What do they, when they start out, what difficulties do you think they face, and how do they overcome them? How do you help them overcome these difficulties?
I think it's basically twofold. One of the really basic things is the PTM is really comprehensive, and it's a methodology. So, but it actually requires quite a lot of time devotion. So time management is definitely an issue. But the really big thing is the process, because almost all of the guys that come to us, a lot of them have actually tried trading before. Unfortunately, most of them not successfully. And a large part of that is down to the fact that, understandably, they've not been taught a process, or they haven't learned a process. And so what the PTM does, and then what the mentoring continues to do, is impart a process and a methodology. And so it's adopting that process and getting into that way of approaching things and thinking about everything that they need to focus on. It's about getting them into that kind of routine and habit. And once they've got that, that's when the confidence comes, because they understand what the process is, why we structure the process in the way that we do, and they can see how that feeds through to generating a portfolio and good returns and good risk management. So really, it's those two things: the time management aspect and getting hold of the process.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of obviously retail traders, they're not giving up their day jobs or not closing down their businesses if they're self-employed and then just starting a whole new career in something that they don't know if they're really any good at or if they like necessarily. So to begin with, retail traders, they're still running their lives in the same way, but I guess trying to fit in this new skill set, this new hobby, if you like, of learning the financial markets, how to trade, how to manage portfolios successfully. But I guess trying to fit that kind of 8 to 12 hour minimum weekly commitment into their diaries and focusing on all the right things. So that's obviously something that they struggle with to begin with and then get used to after, as you mentioned, a couple of months. What do you find retail traders are good at? Because actually earlier you mentioned something quite interesting about being on the trading floors. You're sitting in this kind of vortex of information flow. And the way the market's actually evolved, the internet has actually been the great leveler. And retail traders now, 5 years on, after you left that side of the industry, can actually access all of this information now. They just kind of need to know where to look and how to interpret it. Is there any advantage or are retail traders better or good at anything that you think compared to the professional side they can actually leverage?
It's an interesting situation actually, because if you think about it, when I started to, I think the life market wasn't even screen traded, right? It was still open outcry. So, we've gone from having to pick up a telephone to speak to a broker to put an order in, to you can sit in your underpants at home as a retail guy and you've got all this fantastic connectivity and information at your fingertips. So actually there's almost been a slight role reversal, because we were talking about the information that you're at the center of when you're working at an investment bank. However, what's happened in the last 5 years, partly because of the crisis, is that the biggest growth aspect of investment banking these days is compliance and regulatory stuff. So actually prop trading has been severely curtailed by the regulators. And on the other side of it, for the retail guys, because of the advances in technology and obviously particularly in internet penetration and speeds and everything, you're actually able as a retail guy to access a lot more information, almost as much information as you would be able to access at an investment bank, except you're not encumbered by all of the kind of internal compliance rules and things like restricted lists, which is basically a list of stocks that a trader's not allowed to trade for various compliance reasons. So of course, as a retail trader, you don't have any of those restrictions. So, and particularly in the developed markets of the West, so obviously Europe, UK, North America, you can actually, if you know where to look and find the information, as a retail guy, you can now get it. The sort of barriers to entry have actually sort of come down. So that is actually a big advantage.
And I guess this